So shall I say something, or do you want to ask me?
No, if you'd like to fire away first. Make sure the two gents are okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we have tabled our motion of no confidence. Obviously, the government has lost its Dáil majority. The government is in office now 2 years, and they have failed spectacularly to deal with the many crises that people face, in particular housing, but also the cost of living crisis, which is now causing real hardship to families and households the length and breadth of the state. So they're now out of ideas, they are out of time, and it's time for that to be called. It is, of course, the responsibility of every TD elected here, to the political parties, but also the independents, to make now a very important decision. Do they stand with the people? Do they move for a better government and a government of change? Or do they vote again for the same old same, the same failures that cause hardship for people who, at this time above all others, rely on having a competent and an effective government?
As you say, the government has lost its majority, but we know that it's kind of only really a temporary loss, because there will be two Greens returning in November. We know that Joe McHugh is a single issue defection, so in practical terms they haven't really lost the majority at all.
No, they've lost their majority. As we're speaking today, the government does not have a Dáil majority. Yes, they can put majorities together on a case-by-case basis to get legislation through, but the truth is that this government is a failure on all of the key in all of the key areas that we were told after the last election that they had heard the need for change, that they had heard that housing was a priority and had to be addressed. And here we are 2 years on, and certainly the situation as regards housing has gotten worse. 2 years on, we're in a cost of living crisis. Families are under real and sustained pressure, and the response by government has been slow, has been lacklustre, has at times almost been grudging in its response. So we have spoken a lot about the need for change, and we think now at this point in time, given their level of failure and given the fact that they have now in fact lost their Dáil majority, that the time is right for this motion. And we would invite everyone who wants to see progress in housing, in health, in so many areas that are important in people's lives, to actually support this motion and to show this government the road.
Are you putting, it's not just pressure on the coalition, you're also putting particular pressure on independent TDs on opposition benches to support you. Can you tell me something about that, why you believe they should follow what you're suggesting?
Well, the purpose of moving this motion is to make things better for people who rely on and who deserve to have a good government, a competent government, a government that's in touch, a government that's responsive. And 2 years on, and with a litany of failure to their record, this government now has lost its Dáil majority. So of course we will press for change. Of course we want a new government. We want a different government. We want a government that has the capacity and the energy to respond to all of the big challenges that face people in their daily lives. That's the purpose of this motion. As to people beyond Sinn Féin and how they vote, I can only repeat what I've said. People need, I think people elected to this Dáil need to think long and hard. They need to ask themselves the question, has this government been a success? I think the answer to that clearly is no. They have to ask, can we achieve a better government? I believe the answer to that is yes. And then they need to ask themselves, who do they stand with? Will you stand with the people and communities and families across the state who have been so badly let down? Or will you go along with more of the same? That's the issue.
Will you be actively making that case to some independents? Because I know the government will be doing similar.
Yeah, well, of course, we always talk to people. I mean, I'm very respectful of people's, ability and responsibility to make their own decisions. Ultimately, it will rest on each individual beyond Sinn Féin. But of course, we'll talk to them. And listen, any of you who followed events around the defective block scheme, the Mica and Pyrite scheme that was literally rammed through the Dáil the other night, as the public gallery was packed, and as people whose lives and whose homes have crumbled around them sobbed in the public gallery, and the government bench has shrugged their shoulders in what looked to me like absolute indifference. Anybody who witnessed that could be in no doubt that the time for this government now is well and truly up.